Arsenal top of the shop on 37 points. Newcastle third, 7 points behind on 30. Graeme, from your point of view, who has been the biggest surprise package this season of the two?
I think it's a difficult one to call. I think if you look at Arsenal first, Arsenal had the disappointment of losing out in the Champions League last year. What a reaction he's got from his players. A young squad that should only get better if we can try and apply logic, which doesn't always work in football. But Arsenal are right now, if you're asking me, are a club that are going places with this manager. He weathered some difficult times. He got an FA Cup under his belt, but he did weather some difficult times. And by the people who make the decisions at Arsenal, he's paid them back.
Yeah.
Will they sustain it? I still think people are playing for second place to City, but Arsenal are a fabulous story right now. They really are.
So, Simon, of the two, Graeme would go Arsenal.
Well, no.
Are you going to come to Newcastle?
But I actually think the Newcastle story just edges it, given that Eddie's only been there a year.
All right.
And what a turnaround! What a turnaround! Come a long way, very, very quickly. And the manager and the players he's got. And I'm sorry for repeating myself, but it's the best. I think it's the best way that I can put it into words of how far they've come. They've gone from a team that played survival football in the past under previous managers, plural managers, to a team that now feels they can go and take the very best on, i.e., going to Liverpool, going to Spurs. The turnaround is phenomenal for me.
So you go Newcastle, the biggest surprise package. Simon, Newcastle. I remember you giggled at me when I said top six. And maybe at that stage in the proceedings you were right to.
We will see. Obviously, having played 13, 14 or 15 games.
We'll talk about from where we are today.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We will see how that pans out. But both teams have done remarkably well. Newcastle came out of the season with a huge amount of momentum because Eddie Howe changed the direction they were going in. He's been given a fair amount of money to achieve this, by the way. £200 million worth of transfer spend is not nothing. So he's doing well, and Newcastle were probably doing better than they anticipated, and we'll see if that continues, and Arsenal the same. So I think they're both equally compelling stories, because Arsenal came out of a season with perhaps disappointment in their crawl, and they've come out and performed far better than most people would have anticipated. There's been some very surprising performances in the Premier League this year, and I think the Premier League will settle down after the World Cup, and we might see normal services resumed. But either which way, Arteta has moved back into the camp of someone I thought I had very high aspirations for when he first came in, and I sort of felt that maybe I've got this wrong. And that situation last year when they came back from a break and they needed to beat Norwich because the allegation was that they were very close to making a decision on whether he would stay or whether he didn't stay, got a very difficult result against Norwich and have built from there. And obviously he made big decisions. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was the big decision. But I think if we have to weigh it up in the terms of who's probably the more compelling story, I think it probably is Newcastle, because you're harnessing such momentum.
The manager at Newcastle deserves enormous credit because, Sam mentions they've spent 200 million quid, but I say it here all the time that you've got a group of players. It's the manager's responsibility to get the most from that group of players. Well, there was players, there's one in particular, obviously Almiron, and then Joe Linton. It's up to the managers to get the tune out of the players. Well, he's made those players all of a sudden look like real Premier League players, where there were players that, if they became available, no one would have taken. Now they're very different players, and that has to be down to the manager and the manager only.
And do you think, Graeme, the Premier League needed a story like this?
Well, I think
with City dominance for so long.
Yeah, they are dominating, and this is a great story. With the brand of football they play, and they miss out in the Champions League. And it's only a matter of time before they win it, in my opinion. But this is the greatest league. It's the most competitive league. I've worked in other leagues abroad, Jim. This is the most competitive league. I tell you, there's a feeling abroad that, when you're at a big club, teams don't really believe they can beat you, and they roll over a bit easier than our teams. Whereas in our league, what I found, managing, Liverpool, I'm playing for Liverpool, and the same in Scotland Rangers, the British attitude, it's not English, it's a British attitude. And it's ironic we're talking about this when it was Remembrance Sunday, that we don't do that. We don't roll over. The little guy playing a big guy says, "Let's give it to them today." They think they're the dogs. And let's set about them physically or whatever way. And And that's what's so attractive about our football. And that's why the Premier League is the most watched, most interesting, most competitive, wealthiest league in the world.
Can Arsenal win it? Might they win it?
They can win it, but I have to believe that quality. When I look at City and I see City playing football, and they make a substitutions outside of the goalkeeper, outside of De Bruyne, Haaland comes into that, Silva for me. Whoever they bring on as a substitute is the same quality as the one they're taking off. So I have all but 3 or 4 players. They have the strongest squad I've ever witnessed in my time in English football.
So I think the message is to Newcastle and to Arsenal, keep it going, because we love what you've given us so far. Post-Qatar, keep it going.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.